Oh, hello, PhD patients. This is Dr. Mandy, naturopathic doctor at Proactive Health Group. I just wanted to make a short video for you guys, giving you some science behind the coronavirus and how it relates specifically to resiliency. So this isn't just a virus of the elderly or the chronically ill, but also of seemingly healthy individuals. And as this virus moves west, we're seeing it affect younger and younger populations. So I wanted to give you guys some insight into why and how that's happening. Many people don't really understand the difference between a virus and a bacteria. So a virus doesn't have its own replication machinery, so it requires a host in order to replicate, whereas bacteria can replicate on its own and often does so in a logarithmic fashion under the right conditions. But viruses use this kind of hijacking mechanism, so they hijack a cellular system in order to replicate themselves. So all viruses will have a specific cellular target that they go after to input their DNA and essentially take over that cell. So in the case of the coronavirus, they go after the ACE2 receptor, which is a membrane-bound protein and also an enzyme. So it's a receptor, an enzyme, and protein all in one. And so ACE stands for angiotensin converting enzyme, if you care about that. But if you're a virus, this is a really great enzyme to target because it's so abundant in our body. It's located on a lot of different tissues. It's located on cardiac tissue, so our heart cells, lung tissue. It's located in the gut, as well as vascular tissue. So all of our arteries and veins can have this receptor enzyme. It's upregulated on tissue that has been damaged. So ACE2 receptors are supposed to be acute receptors, meaning they will just be expressed in response to an injury for a short amount of time. But this is where it gets a little bit complicated, but I think it's important to understand. So there's also an ACE1 receptor. ACE1 and ACE2 have opposite effects. They are antagonistic enzymes of each other. And so ACE1 is expressed when we have damage to tissue and it signals repair, which is a good thing. If we have damage to tissues, we need it to be repaired. But too much repair can decrease function, and that's what we don't want, and that's where ACE2 comes into play, because it will come along and tell ACE1 to settle down so that it doesn't continue to repair tissue and therefore decrease function. To give you guys an example of this, so in the lung tissue, we have what's called the alveoli. Maybe you've heard of it. So they're little sacs that will fill with air, and that's how we breathe. That's how our lungs expand and push out the air to release carbon dioxide. So if you are a smoker, for example, every time you inhale, you're doing some damage to your lung tissue. So ACE1 will come along to repair that damage, but we really need to maintain the elasticity of those alveoli. If they can't expand, we won't be able to inhale properly. We won't be able to get air into our lungs. So ACE2 will then come along and stop the repair process so that we maintain function of our lungs. That's really important. We see the same thing in other tissues as well. So for example, vascular tissue also needs to have that elasticity. It's a muscle lining that stretches, and that's what allows blood to flow through our bodies so it can deliver nutrients and oxygen to tissues that need it. If we have damage to that vascular lining, ACE1 will come along and repair the damage, but we need to maintain that elasticity. So that's when ACE2 will come along and slow the repair down. So we're maintaining function again of the vascular lining. So what we want to do as seemingly healthy individuals is decrease chronic inflammation as much as we can. So we know that with chronic inflammation, wherever there is lots of inflammation, there's going to be a high expression of ACE2. So right now, we don't want a lot of ACE2 because we know that's the target for the coronavirus. We also know that chronic inflammation is a really big problem, and it's the root cause of many, many diseases. the thing is, we often don't realize when we have chronic inflammation. The symptoms can be very subtle, and it can affect a lot of different tissues. It can present itself in many different ways. This is something that naturopathic doctors are pretty good at treating. My opinion might be biased on that. But the main message I want to get across to you guys is that there is a lot that can be done right now to make yourself more resilient, to essentially make yourself harder to kill. This isn't going to be the last pandemic that we experience in our lifetime. And we are actually lucky that this virus isn't as lethal as some of the other ones we've seen in the past. So COVID-19 has a 1% death rate, which is still pretty high. I certainly don't want to downplay the severity of it at all, but to compare it to the other coronavirus we've seen fairly recently, Sars, that one has a 13% death rate. SARS was not as contagious as COVID-19, but the situation we're in right now is sort of a good dress rehearsal for what potentially is to come. So what if we experience a virus that is as contagious as COVID-19 and as lethal as SARS? We are not going to be in a good position. So I think it's up to us to take responsibility for our health and make ourselves as resilient as we possibly can. And this is something that can be addressed right now. As far as appointments and naturopathic consults, I personally am available for telemedicine. I can still do lab testing if that's indicated. I can still provide quality supplements through e-scripts and home delivery. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful and informative. If you have, feel free to share it with your friends and family. We just want you to know the Proactive Health Group team is still here for you, and we will continue to be here for you in whatever way that we can. So take care, everyone. Stay safe and stay home.